Most traders like to talk about their wins. The big trades, the lucky entries, the screen-captured profits they show on Instagram. But almost no one talks about how they actually started. The truth is far less glamorous. Most of us don't walk into trading with discipline and intention. We stumble into it through hype, hope, or desperation. Some people discover trading through social media, a viral clip of someone making thousands in minutes. Some through a coworker bragging about crypto. Some through the fantasy of escaping their job. Some through boredom. Some through desperation for a better life. Everyone arrives differently, but everyone carries expectations that are painfully similar. I can learn this quickly. I can make money fast. I can be financially free. I can outsmart the market. And if you felt even one of those things, you walked straight into the trap. Because trading does offer freedom, but only to the people who survive the parts that destroy 95% of traders. Let me tell you this clearly. If you're in this journey, you have almost certainly blown an account. Probably several, maybe many more than you admit. It's expected. It's normal. It's the initiation fee into this world. But blowing accounts is not the moment transformation happens. No, the real turning point comes much later, and it's far more painful, far more internal, far more honest. This is the story of that turning point, my turning point, and most likely yours too. Every trader goes through a period where they are not really trading. They are testing, guessing, reacting, hoping, pressing buttons and calling it progress. After your first few losses, you tell yourself, I just need a strategy. I just need more knowledge. I just need better entries. And you begin your exploration. But here's the part nobody warns you about. Exploration quickly becomes obsession. You start with simple things, RSI, MACD, moving averages, support and resistance. Then the rabbit hole pulls you deeper. ICT concepts, smart money concepts, Wyckoff accumulations, Elliott wave counts, order blocks, volume profile, market structure, algorithmic footprints, Fibonacci confluence, supply and demand levels, price action confirmations, candle psychology, news catalysts, volatility phases. One strategy becomes two become 10 become a monster made of contradictions. You convince yourself that you're improving, but your results stay the same or get worse. You know more than ever. You understand the charts. You can explain complex concepts. You can teach others technical analysis. But your behavior, it hasn't changed at all. You still move stops, chase trends, revenge trade, enter early, exit early, overtrade, overleverage, hope the trade flips, pray instead of plan, freeze instead of execute, trade when emotional, skip when opportunities are perfect. You develop technical intelligence but remain emotionally immature. And this mismatch destroys your confidence, because deep inside you know better, but you still don't do better. That contradiction eats you alive. You're no longer a beginner. You're no longer clueless. You've studied hundreds of hours. You've watched charts for thousands of minutes, but the outcome is still the same. You cannot stay consistent. You're not blowing accounts anymore, but you're not making money either. You're stuck between two identities. Not a losing trader, but not a winning trader. This is the most psychologically torturous stage of trading. It's the purgatory where most traders quit, because it's not obvious what the solution is. If lack of knowledge was the problem, more knowledge would fix it, but you already tried that. Now you feel lost, stuck, confused, disappointed, exhausted. And worst of all, you start questioning yourself. Am I not good enough? Do I lack something others have? Is trading just not for me? But here's the truth. You're not failing because you're not capable. You're failing because you're trying to use strategies to fix a psychological problem. And strategies can't fix your mind. Now we go to the breaking point, where most traders quit forever. There comes a point in every trader's journey where the chart stops being numbers and starts feeling personal. At first, losing money is just frustration, annoying, inconvenient, something you believe you can fix with more knowledge, a better strategy, or one more YouTube video. But eventually, the losses start to feel different. They don't just hit your account. They hit your confidence, your identity, your sense of worth. Suddenly, a losing trade isn't just a losing trade. It becomes a statement. a question, a doubt. Maybe I'm not built for this. This is the moment where the market stops being a playground and becomes a mirror, a brutally honest mirror. It reflects back every weakness you tried to ignore: your impatience, your lack of discipline, your emotional impulsiveness, your craving for certainty in a world that offers none, your urge to win fast instead of win right. And the worst part? You can't hide from it. Not anymore. It usually happens after a familiar sequence. You follow your plan, you think you're improving, you execute trades with confidence. Then one losing streak hits. Not a small one that feels targeted, personal, almost intentional. You take one more trade to make it back, then another and another. You stop following the rules. You stop thinking clearly. You stop being logical. And before you realize it, you're no longer trading your system. You're trading your fear. You're trading your need to fix something that wasn't actually broken until you broke it. You stare at the screen and whisper, "How did I get here again?" Not with anger, not with rage, but with disappointment. Because deep down, you knew better, and yet you did the same thing anyway. This is where the real pain begins. You start questioning not just your decisions, but yourself. You wonder why you do the opposite of what you know is right, why you can explain discipline but not live it, why you can tell others what works but can't follow it yourself. You begin to feel like two people, the one who knows what must be done and the one who refuses to do it. And the conflict between them isn't quiet. It's a war fought in silence, a war no one sees, a war where the enemy and the victim are the same person. For some traders, the breaking point is a blown account. For others, it's the moment they lose money they shouldn't have risked. Rent money, savings, borrowed funds, emotional capital. For some, it's not even the money. It's the exhaustion, the emotional drain, the constant cycle of hope, effort, disappointment, guilt. At some point, every trader reaches the same silent question: is this worth it? And many, in this exact moment, walk away. Not because the market was too hard, not because strategies didn't work, not because they weren't smart enough, but because they never learned to master themselves, because the emotional cost felt heavier than the potential reward, because facing your flaws is harder than losing your money. But here's the paradox. If you're hearing this right now, if you've been broken, frustrated, humiliated, and humbled, you are closer to success than you think. Why? Because the breaking point is where illusions die. The illusion of control, the illusion of quick success, the illusion that strategy alone will save you, the illusion that outcomes define your worth. This moment is where the ego cracks open and space is made for discipline, humility, patience, and structure. You cannot become a consistent trader without this collapse. You cannot skip it. You cannot bypass it. You cannot avoid the confrontation with yourself. The breaking point is not the end. It is initiation. It is the doorway separating amateurs from professionals. It is the invisible rite of passage every profitable trader survives. And once you walk through it, you will never trade the way you traded before. Because now you understand the truth. Success in trading does not belong to the smartest, or the fastest, or the most confident. It belongs to the ones who survived themselves. One sentence to remember: you don't quit trading here. You quit being the trader you used to be. This is where the rebirth begins. This is where the real journey starts. This is the breaking point. There comes a moment in every trader's journey when the noise finally stops. Not because the losses disappear, not because the market suddenly becomes easier, but because something inside you changes. At first, trading feels like a chase for certainty, a chase for the perfect strategy, a chase for the feeling of control. But eventually, after enough mistakes, enough emotional collapses, and enough painful lessons, the chase slows. And instead of asking, "How do I win more?" you begin to ask, "Why do I keep sabotaging myself?" That is the real turning point. Because for the first time, your attention shifts away from indicators, chart patterns, and YouTube strategies and turns inward. You begin to see what was invisible before, not in the market, but in yourself. You didn't blow accounts because you lacked knowledge. You blew them because you couldn't stop when you knew you should. You didn't fail because your strategy was wrong. You failed because you didn't give it enough time to work. You didn't lose because the market was unfair. You lost because you were trading emotionally, not mechanically. And slowly, the truth reveals itself. Trading isn't a test of intelligence. It's a test of emotional control. You start noticing patterns in your own behavior. You trade bigger after a win. You hesitate after a loss. You close winners early out of fear. You hold losers because of ego. You trade out of boredom, not logic. You react to price instead of waiting for your system. You realize the market never caused the chaos. Your reactions did. Once that becomes clear, something powerful begins to happen. You stop taking losses personally. You stop expecting every trade to win. You stop feeling the need to predict the market. You stop chasing moves because they feel right. And instead, you begin treating trading like a process. You stop saying, "I hope this trade works," and instead, "If it fits the rules, I take it. If it doesn't, I don't." You no longer ask, "How do I avoid losing?" You ask, "How do I execute consistently?" The emotional highs and lows begin to flatten. Winning feels normal, not euphoric. Losing feels manageable, not devastating. You start trusting probability instead of emotion, patterns instead of impulses, process instead of instinct. And for the first time, you feel something traders rarely feel in the early stages: control, not over the market, but over yourself. This shift marks the beginning of true progress. You stop trying to outperform time. You allow compounding to work. You let the math do what it was always meant to do. Trading is no longer an emotional roller coaster. It becomes a structured experiment. You no longer chase trades. Trades come to you. You no longer fear the market. You respect it. You no longer trade to feel something. You trade to execute something. This is the aha moment. The realization that consistency isn't about perfection. It's about predictability, repetition, patience, neutrality. And in that quiet realization, something inside you finally unlocks. You stop trying to become a different trader every week and start becoming a better version of the same trader every day. This is the moment when chaos turns into clarity. This is where emotional trading ends and professional trading begins. Once the realization settles, once you finally understand that the market was never the enemy and the real battle was always internal, the rebuilding begins. But this time, it feels different. You're no longer driven by urgency, ego, or the desire to prove something. You're driven by clarity, by intention, by a quiet conviction that trading is no longer about winning fast, but about building something real. You begin by stripping away everything that isn't necessary. All the indicators, all the constant tweaking, all the noise, all the impulsive attempts to outsmart randomness. You remove complexity, not because simplicity is easier, but because simplicity finally makes sense. You choose one method, one framework, one set of rules. And for the first time, you commit to mastering it instead of replacing it. You build structure. You create a pre-trade routine, a clear set of entry and exit conditions, defined risk per trade, a maximum number of trades, a daily cutoff, a weekly review process. Not because someone told you to, but because you finally understand that without structure, discipline cannot exist. You stop trading when you feel emotional. You stop increasing size after a win. You stop trying to recover losses with aggression. You stop thinking the next trade can fix the past. Every decision begins to carry intention rather than reaction. You start journaling, not to analyze the market, but to analyze yourself. You write down what triggered your entries, how you felt before pressing the button, whether you followed rules or broke them, how you reacted as price moved, why you exited when you did, what emotion was present. Fear, greed, hesitation, impatience? Slowly, your journal stops being a record of trades and becomes a record of transformation. Patterns emerge, not in price, but in behavior. You begin recognizing the exact moment impulse tries to hijack your mind. And when it happens, something remarkable occurs. You pause, you breathe, and you wait. Not for the market, but for your discipline to catch up. You redefine the meaning of progress. Winning doesn't excite you. Losing doesn't terrify you. Instead, the only question that matters becomes, did I follow my process? Because now you understand something most traders never learn. A winning trade executed poorly is a step backward. A losing trade executed perfectly is a step forward. Your identity shifts. Success is no longer tied to outcome, it's tied to behavior. You become the trader who measures consistency by execution, not emotion. And then, something incredible begins to happen. Your losses shrink. Your winners become cleaner. Your equity curve stabilizes. Your mindset becomes calmer. Your confidence becomes quieter, but stronger. Trading no longer feels like gambling. It feels like work, predictable, repeatable, measurable work. What once felt chaotic now feels structured. What once felt personal now feels neutral. What once felt overwhelming now feels manageable. You no longer chase trades because you trust that opportunities will return. You no longer fear losses because risk is now pre-accepted. You no longer rush the journey because you finally understand that mastery takes time. And that is when the true shift happens. You stop trying to become profitable, and you start becoming consistent. Because profitability is not a goal, it is a side effect, a natural consequence of discipline, process, emotional control, and patience. This is the stage where most traders never arrive, not because it is complex, but because reaching it requires something most people are unwilling to do: face themselves. But you did. You broke. You learned. You rebuilt. Not the market, not your strategy, your mindset. And now, slowly but undeniably, you are becoming the trader you once hoped you could be, and finally became.